I think I take it, yeah.
Yeah, you have the car?
Huh?
You have the car? Yeah.
No, now I don't, but when is a good time to pick it up?
You can do it like an after class or something. You know, you don't have to come special for it. Just come like the next time you come to class, bring the other car. And then we'll have a couple of people help you take it down, throw it in your car when you get home,
Sounds good.
throw it in the garage, make sure you don't put it behind the car.
If you need it, let me know, right?
Oh, no, yeah.
No, no, no.
I have future.
Like 1 year from now, when line dance
Let,
resurrects again.
hopefully it's not that. If it's that long, you can have 2 drums. You can have drumming practice at your house.
This is another point. That puts pressure on me to deliver some piece of art.
You'll be the only drummer.
I feel pressure.
Actually, we may have a lion dance coming up we might have a lion dance coming up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay, ready? We're gonna bow in, get started. Hup. 2 and 3. Okay, salute. All right, good. So let's. So there's a camera here. So Mark, we can shift over just to here. Yeah. All right, good. Ready? Hands up. They can see you. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. To the side. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. Hands up. Reach down. 1, 2, 3 to your right. 2, 3 to your left. 2, 3. Center. Inhale. Exhale. Hands up. Reach down. 1, 2, 3 to your right. 2, 3 to your left. 2, 3. Center. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, one more time. Hands up. Reach down. 1, 2, 3 to your right. 2, 3 to your left. 2, 3. Center. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, hands on your waist, circular movements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Okay, cross. Knees. Circular movements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Center. Hands on your waist. Neck turning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Center, back and forth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Center, tilt to the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, and 2. Center, rotating down. 1, 2, 3. Reverse. 1, 2, 3. Center, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So before I forget, actually we've been tossing it around as to whether we're going to do any Tai Chi classes outside, going, well, the weather's still okay. So I looked at the weather forecast for tomorrow. It's going to be sunny, like around the 70s. So I thought if you're interested, we can do like a Tai Chi meetup tomorrow at 9:30 just to do the exercise in a form. And then we can kind of share that to get other people that came before. So if you're interested, we're going to probably do that at 9:30. And it's just going to be in the back, right where that curve thing is. So I'll be here. I think Sunny will be here too. Pardon me? Oh, no. And no, tomorrow's fairly sunny unless it's raining. It does have a sprinkler system that comes in around 10 o'clock, but it doesn't. Okay. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, and stop. Okay, turn, stretch it out. Switch. 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 Switch, straighten the front knee. Switch. 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 Center. Okay, we can shake it out. Okay. Deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Wrists. Okay, circular movements. Reverse. And center. Okay, palms down. Bigger circle. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. Okay, shake it out. Okay, let's shift from side to side. Try to find your center. Get your weight over that supporting foot. So that's your substantial leg. Okay, anytime you put weight on one side or the other, the supporting foot is your substantial leg. And as you shift, if you're aware of it and you're sensitive to position, you will feel all the pressure in the sole of your feet. Okay, so the light side and the heavy side become what you have to differentiate. So that shifting becomes an awareness. Then you lift. Okay, shake it out. Okay, alternating the hands, and we're going to get the leg in. So we have to find that center position, leg swing. Allow your torso to twist a bit. Switch. and center. Okay. Side to side. Okay, center. And center. Okay, shake it out. Deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, silk grilling. Switch. Okay, center. Open and close. Switch. Okay, center. Feet parallel, circular movement. Preparation. Okay, lower hoop. Shoulder height. Elbows down. Palms down. Extend. Okay, deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, part the horse's mane or diagonal flying. Switch. Okay, Sana. Cloud hands. Okay, you bring your hands down. Carry tiger to the mountain. Okay, infinity sign. Okay, form the fists. Palms together. strum the lute. Center, thumbs up. Alternate the shoulders. Switch. So put the hands together so they're touching. That way when one moves, the other will move. So that's really a response. You know, one will yield to the other, one drives the other, depending on which arm does the initiation of the movement. So there's building a relationship between the right and left sides. See, so the whole premise of connections is all about that relationship. Okay? Hands up, turn, draw the bow. Okay, fan to the back. Okay, raise the hand. Okay, shake it out. Deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. So what we've been doing in this first hour of class is generally the fundamentals, because fundamentals are the key to developing your patterns, your movement, developing the alignment of your body, so your ligaments and tendons begin to realize, the correct positions. So alignment is very important because you get your joints to kind of go to its fullest potential without actually forcing it. And then the amount of strength that you use is really out of the control. In Tai Chi, we have a theory, a term called use your mind and not strength. So the mind actually controls everything. You learn all your movements through that. So the visual side of it is capturing image, because the first line of learning is really a visual thing that we learn from mimicking. That's it. But understanding takes it to a whole different level where you have to understand. So in the process of learning, that really is a discovery and experience. So everything we learn is through that experience, whether it's trial and error or just a process of how we, evolve. So, how do we spell the word why? How do you spell it? Is it W-H-Y? Yeah. So if you take that term why and then change it into an acronym, it's when, how, and why, right? When, how. So it's when, how, and the last character is what? When. When, how, and why. So we want to, when is the timing for the movement, the phases of movement. How is, how do you do that? And when is the timing, right? So when is the timing, right? How is the method, right? And the reason for that is the principle, the theory. So those three things are things that you have to constantly ask yourself when you're learning the movement: when, how, and why, right? So the reason for when is because if we're doing this, when do we make our transitions? That's the phase of movement. When is a timing that's really covered within your practice. Now everybody's timing is going to be different. Why is the timing different? Because our body is different, and how we perceive things to be and how our body is going to respond to what we think is going to be different. So that really is tied to time of practice, length of practice, years of practice, and your body will change over the period. Then how do you do it? In the last class when I'm working with Nan and Mara, we were talking about in single whip, when we hold the ball, there's a vertical to a horizontal, horizontal. Okay, so to get to the next position, you have to shift. So when does your elbows drop and when does your hands set up? So I see sometimes we see this after we hold the ball, and then we don't really know where the arms are when we open that up. So how do we get there? Well, if you're in this hold the ball position and we go like this, now if we're using the relationship of the hip and the shoulder, the knees and the elbows, and the ankles and the hands, then how do you get to this position without isolating it? So it happens because of a relaxing of the joints and the slanting of the body, because we're preparing for the diagonal flying. Now, the first thing you have to do is 1, 2, and there's turning, 3, 4 if you do a double pivot. If you do a single pivot, you first have to shift, straighten this foot. Now, when you do that, when we turn our body, we slant our arms. So that's how we have to create that position. And then we separate. That's the diagonal flying. So the why is because there's a principle of upper-lower coordination, substantial and insubstantial, and that relationship. So when we're here, 1, 2, 3, 4, when we turn like this, our arms are like this. If we turn like this and then do that, then the arms are not in the right position, and it's not going to be compatible with what we're trying to achieve here. See, so that's something that you have to go through. It's part of the course of learning because it's self-analysis. So the why part of it is that, so you have to understand, when, how that happens, and then, what is it based on? It's based on those principles. The principles we talk about, solid and empty. Does everybody know what solid and empty is? Solid and empty, anybody know what solid and empty is? What's solid and empty, right? Yin yang. Solid and empty is yin yang. But on our training, what does it relate to? Solid and empty. Weight, yeah. So weight is solid and empty. So weighting is the solid side, unweighting is the empty side, or the solid and emptying of that. So emptying is a transition. If I go forward, I fill. When I take the weight off of that, I empty, and you fill the back. Okay, so there's, even in that, there's, when, how, and why, right? How do we do that? When, how, and why? We have to shift our weight, alternate the knees. Just think of the fact that you're not really transferring weight like that. That's abrupt. It's too physical. So what happens is when this pushes, this yields. When this straightens, the back leg yields, right? So that's really what we have to understand, is that it's not just shifting weight by going like this. So a new person, if you were teaching a class or you're teaching someone and you see them do this, that's because they're rolling into it and they think that the weight is going forward, but then they end up like that. Now, there is a position like that when you make a transition, right? When does that happen? In the diagonal flying, when we shift, that becomes active pushing off the ball of your foot and a yielding on this foot. So that makes that solid and that makes that empty. And then you turn the hip. Then this becomes empty because now 100% of your weight is there. So the differentiating between substantial and insubstantial, which is the concept of weight shifting, but making one leg completely substantial, was 100% of your weight goes there. Because at that point, you move this leg. So that's one of the faults that we have as we're learning and going through. So it ties into your footwork. So if you're advancing and progressing, you get to these thresholds, you say, why can't I get beyond the sequence? It's because of these type of things. It's the theory and the principles that drive the movement. That's what makes it different from dance, and makes it different from other things, because on the functionality side, without these principles, you really can't evolve into a level of understanding the movement and the sensitivity involved. So sensitivity like this becomes much more apparent as we manipulate our skeletal structure. So throughout all of our movements, your body is actually switching from position to position as a phase in the movement. So that's what has to happen. So what really changes is not just the body form and its action, it changes up here. So the neurological changes, the wiring on all that starts to evolve to create that action. There's no other way you can do it. So as a prevention of age-related degeneration and a progressiveness in how the brain builds brain plasticity, you have to do these type of things that allows your brain to evolve. But that stops if you don't use it. So I call it the physical side of learning. Because on the physical side of learning, while you're rewiring this, it's actually making your brain stronger and it becomes more intelligent. It's smarter. So the smartness from the brain really will be used to do other type of things. So you start to think differently. So, I mean, it sounds pretty far-fetched, but it's actually something that really happens. And it happens, with everything that we do in regard to movement, because your body will go through a transformation. So we go through the movements with that in mind. When we start off, we look at ourselves when we go in the mirror. We'll have another mirror there so you can do it eventually. If you shift on this side, you're going to move this. We're going to move to the left, and this is called the linear form. And we shift like this. We have to adjust the body. So that's one of the reasons that we have to learn to integrate. So we're in the vertical position. We have a 45-degree chest position. In the horizontal elbow position, we begin to square. Okay, and then you go forward. Okay, that creates a waist movement. Now, when we do this, you say, well, what's the benefit of doing that? This lumbar area that really becomes pretty dysfunctional because it's always rigid becomes a controlled part of your body that normally you wouldn't have. And if we twist step and step through, and we drop the elbow and turn slightly to the left, bring this hand down, then we can move back to the right and then back to center, go to this position, and go forward to set up the other side. That's the process. But we can't do that as a novice in the beginning. Because as a novice, what are we focused on in the very beginning? Building coordination and memorizing sequence. So we can't do these detailed things in the beginning. Not until the form enters the subconscious, right? Enters the subconscious where you don't really have to think about the sequence of the movement. You start to focus on a detail of 45-degree corners, center line. So as long as you have 45 degrees on each side of the center line, you have to move left or right. So if you watch from the beginning, when we start off and we start to change, we move regardless of right or left. It's always part of your movement, right? We step up, that's forward, right and left, forward. Grasshopper sparrow's tail would be back, and then you go forward, and then back, and you hook. Then we turn, we move this to here, we open the stance. Now you see that's the softness, that's the toe-heel relationship, and then when we begin to open the feet, we leave our body here in order to bring it across here, and then get to the other corner. Then we move to the right, and then we move to the left, and then we shift and slant. We straighten this foot, we track that movement, then we shift. Now when we shift, what's the most important part of this shift? The ankle. Once your ankle shifts, your spine will be over the heel of that supporting leg, and you move to your center, and you reset to center. You're down, because we're here. Now you look at your arms, you go through here, you sink down a little from the back, and you lift, and you're here. You bend from the waist, you turn, and you end up here, and you relax. Okay. So all those things that I just mentioned is very hard to memorize. It has to be done. So what I'm just showing you is what I've learned through the experience. But if I bring this up to you, that you have all these little things that you have to be conscious of, then at least on a mindful level, your body will pick up over time as the brain deciphers all this stuff. And then the timing, the mechanism, the when, how, and why stuff comes into play, and then you start to analyze your movement, and it changes. So that's the process, and your body will go through this whole thing. So the right and left is the 45. The forward and back is the legs. The up and down is the rise and the fall, right? So in Tai Chi, we always have forward, backward, right, left, center. So the idea of that is much more complicated than how it sounds, because the body has to know. So anytime we move from right to left, horizontal is right to left, directing from the palm, direct. So if you go this way and you go this way, go this way and go this way, you have right and left. When you combine the right and the left, it becomes forward, and then this is actually, the hand is coming down, so that's actually coming backwards rather than forward. So you combine and you separate. So these are terms that we use: combining and separating, opening and closing. All of these stuff are just, all these terms are just concept and principles, but we don't always pick up on, how refined those terms can be. So it's pretty deep stuff if you get, you work with it and you start to understand. So that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize when they first hear about Tai Chi. They say, so how do you benefit from this? Or why do you benefit from it? So just the same thing, if these are somewhat answered to the practitioner, then you realize that this is what I need to do. And then some people say, well, I don't have the patience, I don't have the time. Why would I go through that process? Where's the benefit? Well, it's an intrinsic benefit where our body is really like a factory. It works on its own. You feed it, you move it, and these are all choices. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to. You can eat whatever you want. You can exercise if you choose to. And, then if something happens or you get sick, that's part of the course. Then at that point you figure out, well, I should be doing this. That's what most people end up, waiting to a stage where they're trying to like save themselves. And, things should happen a little bit earlier than that if it's possible. Now, if you hit with a chronic disease, then that's something else. I'm talking about the average person really don't pay attention to what they need to do, right? So we do that, and then we'll go. Well, we actually 5 minutes. We'll go through the whole form, the short form. So those are just ideas. Okay, good. So we'll go through the long form, or we can focus before we do that, the kicking series. So we don't do a lot of tutorials on the kicks and the hand movements. So when we start off from the single whip, the first thing we do is this. Okay, so what is this? This is lower hoop. So when we talk about the geometry of position, we actually don't understand the geometry of position completely until we start to recognize the combinations of positions that we develop in these positions. So you have your vertical elbow. If you turn your hand like this, there's your position. You have your center line, the wrist is over here. So anytime you have a double hand position, the hoop is like this, the wrist is lined up with your shoulders. Once your hands separate and come into a single-sided movement, you have to track your center line. Okay, so that's why you have to go there, right? So when we're in single whip, when we go like this, the first thing, we relax the shoulder, close the center. Then when we turn the hands, we see that it's a reversing of the ball, right? Or flipping it over. But because our body turns, the reversing of the ball becomes somewhat back and then forward. Okay, so that's the difference between the change of hands, because now you added the turning of the shoulders that's really driven from the lower back when you're turning. And your upper, right where the sternum is behind the back, it twists. Okay, so you twist and you create this position. Now when we step forward, the hands come together as a crossing. But because we sink and cross, we have to sink in the knee and we enter the sitting empty stance. Then we fold like this. Now the hands are level and flat and squared. Now they're at 90 degrees. Elbows are out. And then you open. Now you open by pulling the elbows or relaxing the shoulder and let the elbows go in. So that becomes a transition that's what I would call a passive motion and an active motion. So we're here setting up the passive side or just still side. And then when you expand the body and straighten it up, the elbows come in. So that's when, right? When does that happen? When does this happen? Why does this happen? It happens because we want to create straightness without opening from the elbow and making it isolated and excessive, right? So why? Because we need to use less strength and direct it from the mind and use passive active motion. Then we sit back and then we turn the body as the hands do this. That's when. Create the roundness. And that's really here, right? So you see all the things that we've done over the period of time is building these movements. And then when I step up to here, I sink the elbow, relax the shoulder, because the elbow and the knees will have a relationship. So we fold. Okay, so this folding is like when we're here, right? So we're here, we close the fist, lift the knee, and then we kick. And then we come back down and reset by sinking and closing the upper body. So when we close the hands like this, it's really closing the armpit. It's called sticking the shoulder. See, so that's just the first movement. You can imagine what you have to go through to learn that motion. So we're here. 1, this goes down. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, lift. Now we're going up and out and then down. We do the other side. It's the mirror to that. 1, 2. Now you see the body? Look at the elbows. So Marguerite, look at your elbows. Flip. Turn. Shift. 1, 2, 3. The elbows go up. 4. And then you set back, and then you're going to cross behind. So those are the first 2 kicks. So you have to work through those until your body starts to kind of capture some of that concept. This doesn't happen immediately. You have to go through the process. So while we know the 9 kicks or that series of movements, do you know the transitional side? Do you know the relationship in the body as you move through? Because when you watch, it's here, 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 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2. So your body will pick up on each of those components because it is control. So ultimately you're controlling all aspects of your body, the appendages, controlling your proprioception, controlling, they call it the appendages. So you have to work those limbs with both passive and active movement. Passive is a function of, isolated movement is physical. So we want to take away the physical side, add more passiveness, and create movements that are a function of something else. So you have more passive movement. So it's not as physical and it's not as demanding. You become more efficient but still creating good circulation without taxing your body. So that's called efficiency and natural movement. So our whole goal, premise in Phuoc Tai Mon is to develop naturalness of movement, and everything else falls into place. Okay, so we'll go through the form. Okay, ready? So oops. Don't forget there's a horizontal hoop position there. Good. Deep breathing. So, a lot of the things that we've been going through is really to heighten our awareness and consciousness of what's involved. Because when I was learning, my teacher really, would, how back in the day when the kids were in school, they call it show and tell. Well, all the old school teachers would show you but not tell you. That's how that's how it used to be. And why didn't they tell you? It's because they're trying to preserve their knowledge, because their learning really was difficult too. So anything that they had to go through as a process was something that they didn't want to give up, because it's information and it's knowledge. So to them, that was their gem. That's their hard work. So, being an indoor student of his, he would tell me a lot of things, show me, but he didn't take me by the hand and lead me there. He just gave you that information. It's up to you to figure it out. So through trial and error and discovery and all of that. And I know from how long I've been doing this that it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time. So that's the sort of the perseverance that most teachers don't have with students, because they fall off the cliff along the way, and they really. So that's one of the things that is very discouraging for the old traditional teachers. So they weren't really willing to give it up, because it was so difficult for them to get it. So he would tell me that, the discovery is really experimental and it's a process. He says it's more difficult than digging ditches. So back in those days, people dug ditches by the hand. Today they use backhoes. People got smarter. But the thing is, they use those analogies because learning and progressing, especially in something like this, is, it's an individual-based thing, and you make your discoveries along the way, and you take the principles and concepts. You have to sort of decipher them, and so it's really not something that everyone does. Not everyone has, the stick-to-itness. Not everyone even has the mental capacity to go that deep. So that's why it's such a rare thing for people to really achieve in any single thing. But that's not just this. It's like that in any profession. How many are on the top, and how many are kind of like over here, and how many are down here? The people, whether it's finance, there's very few of these people that are really way up on top. So when people that do martial arts, it's like that too. But there's a lot of people that do it, and everybody wants to be an expert. But how many people stay their whole life doing it to try to find out what there is? So, I have that kind of personality in a sense, because when I was a kid, if I put a nail in a box with the hammer, I didn't want to know that I could put the hammer. I wanted to know why and how it worked. So, that was one of the things I wanted to learn about everything. So when I got into martial arts, I was so fascinated with movement and how it worked, because one of the things he told me was you can use your whole body, but that was the extent of. So what does use your whole body mean? So I had to go through trying to figure all that out. I went from, not just with martial arts, I looked at everything, from gymnastics to yoga to everything. This is back in the 70s. I looked at everything. I looked at how after the Cultural Revolution, how the Chinese evolved in wushu. I try to understand, get into the minds of the people that are doing it. So a lot of things, there's a lot of cross-referencing of strategies and training for athletics. Russian gymnastics, the rhythm gymnastics, they're expert at that. China has captured some of their training techniques from that, from the gymnastics and the wushu, because the traditional arts really wasn't scientific. It was just done. So the side that intrigued me was the methodology and the science behind this. So that's really body mechanics, proprioception, and everything else. Then back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, there was a lot more mental stuff driven from the psychologists, and that's always been in the research and development, but there's a lot of those concepts built into what we do. So when we talk about mind and body and relationships and how the mind operates, stress, all this stuff, it's all tied together using just what we do as a vehicle to develop and understand. So there's a lot of depth built into it, but a lot of it is because my experience is that as a teacher, that's what I do. So why am I open with this? Because I realize it's impossible to figure this out if you don't have a certain amount of guidance. Because even doing a drill, a practitioner doesn't figure that out. Someone has to figure out and then put it into a format. So people that have formatted this, that's not just this, but in, say, other activities, sports, they've really put a lot of effort into formalizing it, and that's why they have professional sports. But something like this isn't as in that level of training, so there's no funding for it. But there is a lot to this, but it takes a long time. So okay, so we'll bow. Up.